I walked into my brother's big event expecting to celebrate him, but instead, I was humiliated in front of everyone. They never noticed me, never cared about what I'd accomplished, but that night, I revealed a secret that shut them all up. And for the first time, I took control of my own narrative. My name is Emma, and I should have been happy for my brother Jacob. He was having his big night, celebrating his career, all his hard work paying off. But the truth was, I wasn't happy. I wasn't even close. I walked into the venue, the buzz of conversations surrounding me, but somehow I felt small. The room was full of people who only seemed to care about one thing, Jacob. Everyone was congratulating him, praising him. He deserves this, they said. Jacob has really made something of himself. And there I was, standing in the back, a glass of wine in hand, just watching. It was never easy for me, living in his shadow. I had my own dreams, my own plans, but no one ever seemed to see them, not when they were all too busy talking about Jacob. I tried to smile, to join in the celebration, but it felt hollow. My mom found me first, her eyes shining with pride as she wrapped her arm around me. Isn't it amazing, Emma, she said, looking out at Jacob, glowing with excitement. Look at what he's accomplished. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah, he's done great. But the words felt wrong coming from my mouth. They didn't feel true. Jacob was amazing, sure. But what about me? What about the things I had done, the things I was trying to do? Why did it always seem like I was invisible? Emma, you should be so proud of your brother. My aunt chimed in as she joined us, her eyes scanning the room. It's a big deal, you know. He's really making waves. You're lucky to have him as a brother. I smiled tightly. I know, Aunt Claire. It wasn't that I wasn't proud of him, I was. But it wasn't fair. It was never fair. Every time I tried to take a step forward, it felt like I was tripping over his success, constantly reminded that I wasn't quite measuring up. As the night wore on, the attention didn't shift. Jacob stood at the center talking to everyone, while I found myself leaning against the wall, watching the crowd laugh and cheer around him. The room felt suffocating, like a cage of expectations I didn't fit in. Then came the moment that would push me over the edge. I was talking to my cousin Sarah when I overheard someone mention my name. You know, Emma's still trying to figure things out, right? She hasn't really done much since college. I froze. The voice belonged to a family friend, someone I barely knew. I turned my head slowly, trying to play it cool. But the words had hit harder than I expected. Still trying to figure it out, I whispered to myself, barely able to keep my emotions in check. What does that even mean? Is everything okay? Sarah asked, noticing my stiff posture. I forced a smile, taking another sip of my drink. Yeah, just fine. But I wasn't fine. Not at all. It wasn't the first time I had been criticized. Not even the first time I had been subtly belittled in front of everyone. But for some reason, tonight felt different. Tonight, the humiliation was too much. The comparisons were too loud, too sharp. It was like I was being smothered by this constant expectation to support Jacob, to stand by him while I lived a life that no one cared to notice. The remarks about my career choices, my lack of direction, they felt like daggers to my already bruised ego. I had worked hard to build something for myself. I had ambitions. But how could anyone see that when they were too busy focusing on my brother's accomplishments? I could feel the tears pricking at the back of my eyes. But I refused to let them fall. Not now. Not in front of all these people. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't keep doing this. I couldn't keep pretending I was happy for everyone else, when no one seemed to care about what I wanted, what I had worked for. As I glanced around the room again, I noticed the way people fawned over Jacob. He was the golden child, the one who had everything figured out. And then there was me, lost in the shadows, feeling like I didn't belong in my own family. This wasn't just a night about Jacob. It was a reminder that I had been living for everyone else, playing the role of the supportive sister, the one who stood quietly by and cheered for her brother. But tonight, something shifted inside me. I was tired of living in his shadow. I was tired of being invisible. I made a vow to myself right there. I wasn't going to stay in the background anymore. I wasn't going to let my brother's success define me, not anymore. I was going to find my own voice, my own path, and for once, I was going to step into the light. The night after Jacob's event, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, the silence of my room feeling like a suffocating weight. The walls felt too close, and the thoughts in my head were too loud. How could I have let them do that to me again? How could I have let myself stand there, invisible, as they celebrated him again? Every congratulatory word that was said to him felt like a slap in my face. It wasn't that I didn't love my brother, I did, but it always felt like I was living in a shadow, suffocating under the weight of his success. I sat up in bed, my heart racing, and grabbed my phone. My mom's message from earlier flashed across the screen. "I'm so proud of Jacob. We raised him right." I stared at it, feeling a knot in my stomach. It wasn't fair. It was never fair. Every word, every compliment, was a reminder that I didn't measure up. I had always been the other child, the one who didn't quite hit the mark. No matter how hard I tried, it was never enough. "Why can't they just see me?" I whispered, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "Why can't they ever see me?" The thoughts kept circling in my mind. My career wasn't perfect. It wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, but I had worked hard. I had dreams, I had goals. But none of it mattered because everyone was so wrapped up in Jacob's brilliance. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the hurt, but the words kept echoing in my mind. Still figuring things out. That comment from the family friend rang louder than anything else that night. It felt like I was trapped in a life I didn't want, and no one cared enough to notice. I had spent so many years being the good daughter, the supportive sister. I'd been the one to hold it all together when my family needed me. But when did I get to take center stage? When did I get to be seen? I could hear Jacob's voice in my head. "You'll always be second to me." I hated how right that felt. Tears welled in my eyes, but I quickly wiped them away. No, I wasn't going to let this break me. Not again. I had let myself get lost in his shadow for too long. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing my dreams, my worth, just to make everyone else happy. I stood up, pacing the room. Enough. The word felt foreign, like it was a promise to myself. The anger, the frustration, the pain, it was all building up inside me, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for it. It wasn't wrong to want something for myself. It wasn't wrong to want to be seen. I thought about the career I was trying to build. The late nights working, the long hours. I was doing the work. Why didn't anyone see it? Maybe it was time to stop trying to get validation from them. Maybe it was time to stop playing the supporting role in my own life. I walked over to my desk and grabbed my laptop. I had a business idea, something I'd been working on for months. It wasn't much yet, but it was mine. Sitting down, I opened the laptop and began drafting my plan, reminding myself why I was doing this. This wasn't for them. This was for me. This was my time. No one was going to define me anymore. I spent the next few hours working, pouring all my energy into my plan, ignoring the voice in the back of my head telling me it was too much, too soon. For the first time in a long time, I felt focused. I felt like I was doing something that was just for me. It wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. I knew it would take hard work, time, and maybe even more sacrifices, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I was ready to take it on. I wasn't going to let Jacob's success control me anymore. I stood up again, a sense of determination rising in my chest. Tomorrow, I was going to make sure my family saw me. I wasn't just Jacob's sister. I wasn't going to live in his shadow anymore. Tomorrow, I would start living for me. The next week dragged on, but something inside me felt different. I wasn't the same person I'd been just a few days ago. I had made the decision. I was finally going to take control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone stop me. That evening, I received another invite to one of Jacob's events. This time, it wasn't a big promotion celebration, but a small get-together for his closest friends and family. They were all gathering at a fancy restaurant to celebrate his latest achievement, and of course, my mom had sent me an invitation. "It'll be good for you to come and support Jacob, Emma," her text said, the familiar tone in her words, heavy with the expectation that I would just show up, smile, and fade into the background. The idea of being the invisible sister again made my stomach turn, but I had made my choice. I wasn't going to go back to being that quiet, unnoticed sister. If they wanted to see me, they would see me for who I really was. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and sent a message to Jacob. "I'll be there tonight, but I'm going to speak first. Just so you know." I waited, staring at the screen, the tension building in my chest. A few minutes later, a message popped up from him. "What do you mean, speak first? Is everything okay?" I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the text, knowing what I was about to do would change everything. I had been sitting on a secret for months, a secret that I'd kept hidden because I never thought I could be more than Jacob's sister. But tonight I wasn't going to hide anymore. Tonight, I would reveal who I was without apologies, without shame. Later that night, I walked into the restaurant, and the familiar wave of insecurity hit me instantly. I scanned the room. There was Jacob, standing in the center, surrounded by people who adored him. People who looked at me like I didn't quite belong. I felt that old familiar feeling rise up in me, the feeling of being invisible, of living in his shadow. But I wasn't going to let it control me. Not tonight. I walked over to my mom, who looked up, surprised to see me. Emma, I didn't expect you so early, she said, beaming with excitement. Yeah, I figured I'd come in and make my entrance. I replied with a smile that didn't quite match my nerves. Jacob saw me and waved, but his eyes narrowed as I walked toward him. Hey, what's up? He asked, his voice full of concern. Actually, I said, cutting him off, I need to say something before we go any further. The room grew quiet, the energy in the air shifting. Everyone turned their attention to me, and for a moment, I thought about turning around and running out, but I didn't. I took a deep breath, standing taller. Tonight isn't just about celebrating Jacob's success, I began, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. It's about me too. The shock in the room was palpable. Jacob's face twisted in confusion, but I didn't let that stop me. I've been working on something of my own, I continued, feeling the adrenaline pumping through my veins. I've been building my own business, my own brand, and I'm not just Jacob's sister. I've worked hard for what I've accomplished. A heavy silence hung over the room. Jacob opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand to stop him. Tonight, I said, I'm not here to support you. I'm here to support myself. I have something to show everyone. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. Connecting it to the projector, the screen lit up, showing the website I had spent months creating, my own business, my own brand. The work I had done quietly, without anyone's recognition, was now there for everyone to see. I watched their reactions as the screen flickered to life. Some faces were confused, others impressed, but the most important thing was the silence. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I had everyone's attention. This is what I've been working on, I said, feeling a surge of pride. This is me, not the sister, not the shadow, just me. The applause that followed wasn't what mattered. It wasn't about the validation from them. It was about me finally stepping into my power and showing the world what I had been hiding. All along, my secret wasn't just a business, it was my declaration of independence. Jacob stood there, stunned, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the side character. I was the one in the spotlight, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me again. The applause still echoed in my ears, but it felt distant. It wasn't about the clapping. It wasn't even about the recognition. For the first time, I had stepped into my own light, and that was the victory. The feeling of finally being seen, of no longer being overshadowed, was both surreal and empowering. I stood there, feeling all the eyes on me, and I didn't shrink. I didn't look away. I didn't apologize for taking the spotlight I had earned. This moment, Emma, that was wow. Jacob's voice pulled me back to reality. I turned to face him, and the confusion in his eyes was clear. He hadn't expected this. You never said anything about this. Yeah, I know, I said, my tone steady but calm. I didn't think it was necessary to announce it. I wanted to make sure it was real before I talked about it. His mouth opened and closed, like he was trying to process what had just happened. His face had gone from confusion to something else, maybe envy, maybe disbelief. He ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to find the right words. You could have told me, Emma, he said quietly, looking down at the floor. I didn't know you were well. I didn't know you were doing something this big. I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms. I didn't need to tell you. I didn't need to tell anyone. I've been doing this for myself. His eyes flickered with something like guilt, but I wasn't interested in feeling sorry for him anymore. I wasn't interested in his apology either. I don't need you to be proud of me, Jacob, I said, my voice firm. I'm proud of me. I'm finally proud of myself. For the first time, I saw him look away, and I wasn't sure if it was out of shame or because he didn't know what to say. He was used to being the one everyone praised, the one everyone depended on. And now I had taken my own place, my own space. I had taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone make me feel less than for it. I walked away from him then, to the front of the room where everyone was still talking about what had just happened. There was a buzz in the air, a shift that had occurred because of my decision to step up and show everyone who I was, my family, my friends. They were all forced to look at me in a new way, not as Jacob's sister, not as the quiet one, but as Emma who had worked tirelessly for her dreams. Emma who had just shown them all what she was capable of. As I mingled with the guests, I saw the faces that had once only looked at me with pity or indifference. Now, there was something else in their eyes, respect, interest, curiosity. I had opened a door, and they were finally starting to walk through it, to see who I really was. Emma, you really did it, my mom said, walking up to me, her eyes wide with surprise. I did, I replied, giving her a small smile. I've been doing it for a while now. She looked me up and down, clearly proud but still unsure of how to react. I never knew. I didn't think you wanted this kind of attention, I laughed softly. I didn't want attention, Mom. I just wanted to be seen. I wanted to be more than just Jacob's sister. She nodded slowly, her eyes softening. I'm proud of you, Emma, I really am. That meant more than anything else. My mother's approval had always been important to me, but for the first time, I didn't need her validation to feel worthy. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I walked outside into the cool night air, breathing in deeply, the weight that had been on my shoulders for so long, the weight of living for everyone else, of constantly being measured against my brother, was finally lifted. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my family, keep me in their shadow anymore. This was my time, my moment, and I wasn't going to waste it. As I stood there, I realized something else. The battle had never been about proving myself to anyone else, it had always been about proving it to me, and now that I finally felt free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone else to tell me I was worthy. I was telling myself that I was worthy, and that, in itself, was the greatest victory of all.